our speaker, as David said, is Khadija Stewart. And I met Khadija at the International Seabed Authorities meeting, one of their meetings. And many of you will know the ISA. It is a UN organization in Jamaica, which is supposed to moderate what happens with deep sea mining. So I was there and listening to everybody, and suddenly Khadija was on the stage. She intervened, and I said, "Oh, this sounds interesting. Maybe we should get her to speak to our group here because we have a very diverse group of students. Some of them will go off to be professors, some will join NGOs, some will do all sorts of things, international organizations, and some of them might start their own thing, just like Khadija did. So I thought we should invite her. And here you are, welcome. So Khadija is a Caribbean climate storyteller and ocean advocate. So storytelling, ocean advocate, that is the big combination there. And she's deeply committed to raising awareness and fostering sustainable practices through creative expressions, And as the founder, she founded EcoVive, Environmental Creatives, and is a marine conservation arm of EcoSeas Caribbean. And she has led numerous initiatives, and that's how she got into the ISA meeting, doing good stuff. And I could read more and more, but essentially, this is somebody who has decided, look, there's something to be done here, especially by the youths of the Caribbean region, to kind of push their region into taking climate action and sustainability action, environmental action. So this is why I was so happy to invite you, and you accepted. So thank you so much, and over to you, Khadija.
All right, thank you so much. And let me see if I can share my screen. Yes. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
Right. Okay, so as mentioned, I am Khadija Stewart from Trinidad and Tobago, founder of, depending on where you're from, you could say Eco Vibes or Eco Vibes. And it's Eco Vibes Environmental Creatives and the ocean conservation arm of that organization, EcoSeas Caribbean. Right. So as I mentioned, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, so I'm an island girl, and I live on the island of Trinidad. And I just have some quick fun facts about Trinidad, if you may not know. And this is in the Caribbean. And if you could see on the map, we're literally a stone throw away from Venezuela. And theory has it that many years ago, and this is millions, not hundreds of years ago, we were actually connected to the South American continent and then broke off. But yes, we are a lovely little island, a population of approximately 1.5. Our biggest source of income is our oil and natural gas industry. And so my fun facts, we have the Pitch Lake, which is the largest natural deposit of asphalt in the world. And it's a sight to see. It's literally a lake. And when you go and you look at it, you have to take a stick and you pick it up and you're just picking up black asphalt. And this is what is used to pave roads throughout the world, etc. And then the home of, I would say, the greatest carnival in the world. Brazilians will be like, no, it's Brazil, da 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 da. And yes, Brazil's carnival is amazing, but right after Brazil is Trinidad Carnival, and it is incredible. One for the books. Is a festival that you cannot miss. So if you're ever thinking of coming to Trinidad and Tobago, sun, sand, and sea, yes, but carnival and food. And then we are also the birthplace of the steel pan, which is our national instrument. And this is the only musical instrument that was invented in the 20th century. And this was actually invented from the oil drums that they would have had. And the slaves started like tuning the oil drums to create music. And here we have it. And the steel pan is actually predominantly used during our carnival time and carnival festival. So that's just a little history on Trinidad and Tobago. And I had more fun facts on the region. I actually had a quiz, but then I was just like, let me not do all that because I don't know if everybody would have known the answers. And then I didn't want to have like a moment of awkward silence where I'm like, oh, what country has the underwater sculpture? And then nobody knows the answer. And then we both just sit down here in a period of awkwardness. So no, the answer to that is Grenada, by the way. But yeah, so this is just a little bit on Trinidad and the Caribbean. Now, as I mentioned, I'm an island girl. This is Tobago, and I grew up in the mountainous parts of Trinidad, but the ocean is like a 30-minute drive. So I would always be in the water. I would always be in the beach. Um, I would always be in a river, splashing somewhere. Like I call myself a fish or a mermaid sometimes just because. And love going on hikes, like literally Santa Cruz, which is the area I'm from, is just greenery 24/7. And I absolutely love the fact that I can be engulfed in so much nature. But then 15 minutes, it's the capital, Port of Spain, where it's complete different from all that greenery. It's just urbanization 24/7, a mini concrete jungle. We call Port of Spain. Well, some people, not we, because it's not me. Some people call Port of Spain the New York of the region, which is like, okay, why would we want that title? But I guess. But basically, it's just to show like how urbanized it is, and it's literally just concrete and heat 24/7. Two very extreme parallels. But being from the Caribbean and, experiencing the environment the way I did and the way I grew up, I was just starting to notice all these changes occurring. And earlier this year, we had an oil spill off the coast of Tobago, which was detrimental to our marine ecosystems, to our coastlines, to the tourism industry. And this oil spill was in Tobago, but years ago, we've had oil spills in Trinidad, and where it was like thousands of barrels of oil just released into the water. And we had oil. I showed you the picture, the map just now, and you saw that Trinidad was right next to Venezuela, South America. And we actually had oil from that spill travel all the way up to Mexico with the ocean currents and everything else. And I started noticing more and more environmental problems, environmental disasters, the oil spill being one. And then recently, and by recently, 2011 onwards, we started seeing like massive sargassum blooms. And sargassum is a form of seaweed. Now, this is something that was naturally occurring in the Sargasso Sea or the Atlantic Ocean. And then all of a sudden, blooms became insane, abnormal, and it started being deposited on shore, and it definitely became somewhat of a problem. And now people are starting to see it as a resource. We've had sea turtles dying because one, when they hatch, they can no longer come out from the sand to be able to make it onto shore. We've had, or they can't come up onto the sand to lay their eggs. There was a day I went sea turtle tagging, and I myself, as a human being, could not walk on the beach because the sargassum deposit was waist high. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And the cause of that, things like nutrient-rich waters, climate change, the iron-rich dust that's coming from the Sahara Desert, that's coming across to the region, all these different things is like basically operating as a mega fertilizer. And now our shores are flooded with sargassum, and you have people that want to come to relax for vacation, etc. And then they're like, nope, you cannot go in the water, you can't do anything. And of course, it's affecting the fisheries industry because fishing boats can't go out, they can't come back in. Like it's just a domino effect of problems. And now the big topic, coral bleaching. We're still experiencing a mass bleaching event, and we just recently I went to the beach in Trinidad, and I stood up in the water and I was like, wait, why is this water so warm? Like it's supposed to go to the ocean to cool down, to relax. It was warm. And I was just like, if I am feeling warm, then I can't even begin to imagine the stress that the creatures underneath have to deal with, because they definitely not accustomed to any kind of heat, especially the heat that they're experiencing right now. And because of that, we're seeing extreme cases of coral bleaching happening. So it's just like, all these different environmental problems happening day by day. And then I just decided, you know what? Let me see how best I could contribute and be part of the solution. And this is where we have EcoVibes Environmental Creative. This is the company that I created. But before the company, I feel like I should give just a little bit of backstory. So I did my undergrad in Trinidad and Tobago at the University of the West Indies in environmental and natural resource management and geography. And then I went to Kingston University, London, to do my first master's in sustainable development. And I finished my master's and I was like, yes, I'm bright. I'm one of the smartest. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to be a consultant or I'm going to work for the government. I'm going to have all these solutions. I'm going to be doing environmental impact assessments. Like I am going to be that girl. I'm going to be the environmental girlie. And that definitely did not happen. A month passed by, 2 months passed by, 3 months, no job in sight. I could not get a job anywhere. I was interviewing and then nothing. And then after a while, I couldn't even get an interview. And I just sat down there depressed. And I was like, I worked so hard. Like, and as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm an island girl and I went to London. So I had to deal with the cold for the first time and everything else. I was like, all those nights freezing in the library, all these things, and I cannot get a job. What madness is this? And then after a while, some of those oil spills that I was talking about, they were really bad. And then I realized the public did not understand the extent of the problem, and a lot of misinformation was being thrown around. And I started listening to this and I was like, wait, okay, well, Khadija, you have knowledge. You could maybe try and educate people. So I started a blog and it was the Eco Vibes blog. And I wanted to make sure that I had a name that was catchy so that people didn't see me as like an extreme tree hugger or didn't want to not take me seriously. But I was just like, but my target audience is the youth, it is young people, and I want to make sure they're engaged. So I was like, I feel like eco vibes is a good catchy phrase to get people involved and realize that environmental work, yes, it's serious, yes, it's all of this, but we can enjoy protecting and saving the environment. And that's where the name come about. And you see the frog is just chilling, lying down, like living its best life, being one with nature and understanding and respecting it. And that's the exact mentality I wanted people to get from the organization. And after a while, it started off as a blog, and this was in 2018 or 2019, I believe. And then all of a sudden, I realized people started liking the articles, people started connected to the information. They wanted more, they wanted to know how they could get involved. So I was like, okay, calm down. I didn't reach that far in the thought process. But after a while, EcoVibes evolved into a full-blown company. And now we're focused on, I say, where creativity meets conservation. And we're all about advocacy, storytelling, empowering Caribbean youth more than anything else to drive climate action. We're developing a lot of different campaigns. We use art and the creative tools. We have a lot of workshops and training sessions, capacity building, of course, to make sure that we equip the youth with all the skills necessary to go out there and be the change makers that they need to be. And we focus on things like climate change, SDG 6, which is um, water for all, and so water conservation, and then life below water, which is ocean conservation work. And so after all of that, what do I do on a day-to-day basis? So I have the EcoVibes podcast, and this is where I interview professionals all around the globe and really focus on having informative but casual palatable conversations on climate change or on ocean conservation or any of these things. But I especially like interviewing young people within the region or globally to understand, like what got them into this field as well. Like really creating a space for them to share their story and share their ideas and share their concepts while discussing some of these crucial issues and understanding some of the problems that we all face as young people in this space, and then how we could come together as a collective and break out of that. And some of the people I've interviewed have been doing absolutely incredible work. Sometimes I question myself and I'm like, okay, am I doing enough? But I'm learning not to compare and everything else, but just to understand that we are all in our respective spaces or avenues. And it's so important that we respect that, we understand that, and we understand that we all have a different gift to bring to the table. And as long as we're showing up in our most authentic self, then that is like what's important. And I love recording the podcast. It's called the Eco Vibes Podcast. And it's fun. I spend a lot of time laughing, making jokes, but still having all these serious conversations of climate change. But like I said, making sure that the podcast does not leave you after you listen to it feeling like the world's going to end. What is my purpose? Let me dig a hole and go in there and just wait for it to end. Like, no, that's not the vibe that we want. And that's definitely not what we create. And like I mentioned, storytelling. So through the blog, um, through art, through magazines, children's book, coloring books, all these different things, like really making sure that we have content created and different forms of content to get people engaged in climate action and ocean conservation, and then capacity building. We've had several workshops and programs. The picture that you're seeing here is actually from a climate justice camp in St. Martin that happened this year, and was the Caribbean arm of the camp for the first time. And sorry, we were responsible for leading the marine conservation track, and every day we had different topics, things on shark conservation in the region, cetaceans, sea turtle conservation, pollution, etc. But really getting people engaged in the topics and then the solutions, and then understanding how they too could go forward and develop these some of these solutions as well. Oh, this is just, let me go back. This is just what the podcast looks like. This is the logo. That's supposed to be representative of me and my fro. I mean, my hair is not looking like that right now, but give it like 3 or 4 days and my hair will very much be more furry and puffy. So this is supposed to be me, and that's the Eco Vibes frog inside of the hair right there, and then the mic. So this is the Eco Vibes podcast, and you can literally find it on every podcasting platform available. So there's that. And how did we reach to the end of the presentation? Let's go back a little bit. Not there, not there, not there. Right. And then this would have been some of the people that I would have interviewed on the podcast, like I mentioned. So for example, the far right on top, that's Dr. Kim. She uses drones for marine conservation. She does a lot of work with drone technology in the Caribbean. And I actually had a workshop with her in Trinidad recently where she trained about 30 young people on how to like safely fly the drone and use the drones and the different ways that you could use a drone for different conservation efforts. We have in the middle, Saeed, and he works at AOSIS, for example, but he does a lot of work on the plastics treaty negotiations. And he's younger than me from Guyana, present in these negotiations, really sharing and amplifying the region's needs and perspectives when it comes to the plastic treaty and what that needs to look like, especially for us. And who else is here? We have Rigo. This is an energy specialist from Panama. We have Carlos, the guy with the doing this. He is a shark. He calls himself Profe Tiburon, which is shark teacher in Spanish. And yes, but he does a lot of work on shark conservation, etc. So really just to show you the different diversity of people that we have on the podcast and all the different stories that you will be able to get and share and learn from. And so now I'm going to jump into some of my projects. And this one was very near and dear to my heart because it was the first time I took on a project like this. And this is the Caribbean Ocean Perspectives Project. And this was a full storytelling project aimed at raising awareness. And it came together in the form of an interactive online magazine and a podcast series, which had the voices of stakeholders, especially the youth, all contributing towards that magazine and then using that as a tool to go forward and raise awareness and continue mobilizing change. And I have never designed an online magazine in my life. I don't know what made me feel like I could do that, but I was just like, yeah, I could do that. Why not? And there was days when I was literally like this, ready to pull out each and every strand of my hair, but I was like, no, we're gonna get through this. And receiving content from so many people was absolutely incredible. So I had people submit pictures, underwater pictures from throughout the region. So I got pictures from like Jamaica, pictures from the Dutch Caribbean, pictures from Haiti, pictures from everywhere, showing all the different underwater environments. Then we had artwork as well. People submitted art to be placed in the magazine. We had poetry, and but something that's really cool that I really love about this magazine is that when you go into it and you go into the poetry page and you click on it, you could actually hear the poets reading their poem. And I was like, I was so proud when I was able to like accomplish that. Because I just feel like we're all different learners, and it's one thing to have like articles in front of you, which the magazine also does have articles, but some of us need to see pictures, we need visuals, we need to see videos, or we need to hear it and everything else. But like really getting all these different creative tools in one package to be used as a tool was something that was incredibly challenging but rewarding. And so far, we've had thousands of people engage with the magazine, and people have been asking me when I'm doing the next one. And I'm still somewhat traumatized from having to learn how to do that. I mean, I learned Illustrator in a few hours to be able to put things together. And I became a graphic artist, editor, everything all in one. But it was great. And then the Deep Sea Youth Symposium. As mentioned, I've been attending the meetings at the International Seabed Authority, focusing on deep sea mining. So in my previous role as the Caribbean Regional Rep at Sustainable Ocean Alliance, I was given a deep sea mining portfolio. And I remember the first time I heard about deep sea mining, I was just like, what? In the deep ocean? How are we even gonna get there? Like, what are you talking about? Leave that alone. And then when I realized, okay, this is something that was going to be serious, I said, okay, well, time for me to be on board with this topic and really understand what is happening here. And then I learned that the decision-making body was located in Jamaica. And I was like, which Jamaica? It could never be the Jamaica in the Caribbean because I've never heard of this institution before. What are you talking about? This is just one big joke. And then I realized it was not a joke. It's all very serious. And with that, deep sea mining became something that was top priority for us because as a ocean conservation and climate action organization, we did not hear about it. And then when I continued asking more and more people, they were like, what is deep sea mining? We've never heard of that before. And again, when I tell them, oh, did you know that the International Seabed Authority is in Jamaica? They just looked at me and laughed. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I realized that there was a serious need to really have a campaign around deep sea mining, which is exactly what we did. We had launched the Caribbean Youth Against Deep Sea Mining, and then a big part of that was the Deep Sea Youth Symposium. And this was, again, something that I've been really proud of. So this was the last year, parallel to one of the meetings. We had a big capacity building initiative where we brought around 25 to 28 young people from the Caribbean and Latin America to Jamaica for 5 days to learn all about the policy behind deep sea mining, the science, how the governance structure, and advocacy work, and how they could get involved in deep sea mining campaigns and go and launch their own afterwards. And we brought all of them to Jamaica, 5 days. They heard from all the lead scientists that been present on the ground. They heard from some of the state delegates. They heard from policy experts. They were all like very much engaged and surprised at how engaged they were because, sometimes you go to a conference or you go to a youth program and there's the main meeting taking place and you're always separated. But for this, they really had the opportunity to engage with everyone, especially the delegates. And for that, They were extremely grateful, but it didn't just end with come and learn about everything related to deep sea mining. We also had a big art exhibition, which again, I don't know if you can tell by now, but I love incorporating creative tools. I can't draw or paint or any of those things to save my life. A stick person is as much as you could probably get out of me, but I love using that. And we did use that as a tool again to get Jamaicans aware of deep sea mining. We had a whole interpretive dance. We had voices from the Pacific, especially Hawaii, come and share their perspectives on the topic, etc. But it was really good. And then it ended with a field visit because I feel like it's one thing, and this is something that drives me mad when I go to these meetings at the International Seabed Authority. Those meetings are boring. The capital B, right? And you just watch all these people sitting down in this room having these very important discussions, and it's just like, where is the culture and the ocean and the life and everything else that exists within this space that you speak about? It's literally like a dead, lifeless room with just the most, I don't know, boring conversations ever. I mean, it is important and it is crucial, don't get me wrong, but and I'm sure Rashid could tell you that there's been one or two times where he may or may not have, had a little dose of obsession, but everyone has at those meetings, so don't feel any type of way. But yeah, so I really wanted to make sure that people get into the water, get into the ocean, really get immersed into that. And that's exactly what we did. We had a field day where we went snorkeling and everything else, because I do feel like it's extremely important to understand the very environment that it is you're working towards developing regulations for. And this is just some pictures at the International Seabed Authority. And again, this is pictures of the Deep Sea Youth Symposium. So you would see we literally had workshops, programs. This big group picture here was the day that we went out into the field. And you're seeing a lot of smiling faces. Everybody was happy to be snorkeling, to be seeing Jamaica's underwater environment, and then presentations and everything else. And every young person had the opportunity to present on themselves and their work. So it wasn't just about them sitting down and listening to people talk to them 24/7. They also had the opportunity to be engaged and to be the specialists that they all are in their respective fields. And then one of the other things, like I mentioned, I love using art, brushstrokes for Blue Planet. This is one of the other projects that I use, and not projects, well, it's one of the other projects that I have. Right, that's the correct terminology. And this right here, as you can see, is a painting that was used in an art exhibition that we had last year. And the idea behind this is essentially artivism, especially when it comes to the ocean. In the Caribbean, the ocean still has a negative stigma, or I would say it's more along the lines of that generational trauma that came from slavery that has passed all the way down, where we still have people not willing to or wanting to engage, or very much fearful of the ocean because of what it represented in the past. Now, of course, that is changing, and we're seeing a new generation or a new culture being born of ocean lovers. But there's still hundreds of people that you could find that will walk to the shore and be like, that's it. If they get their ankles wet, they're doing a lot. They're doing the most. So yeah, so for a lot of them, the ocean is literally something that is completely out of sight. So it is out of mind, and understanding the concepts and why protecting it is so important becomes very challenging. And one of the ways that we found will be very useful to bring the ocean to people is through art and photography. So this is why we have brushstrokes for Blue Planet. And we have several sip and paint events, or as you can see, this was in Panama. We are in October already. So last month, September, and we had a huge mural painted, and then we had like kids come in and paint different sea creatures and everything, while also educating them about the ocean, and they absolutely loved it. We've had several art competitions, and with those competitions, we have exhibitions. We had the exhibition in Jamaica, exhibition in Trinidad, one in Panama, and one in Costa Rica, and always doing all these different painting sessions and getting people involved, building that community and sitting down and having these genuine conversations about the ocean and then how we could again develop more projects or more initiatives moving forward. And then sometimes with the paintings or with the things created, we use that to go into schools or to go into camps or to go into different programs and educate people as well. And this right now is the project that I'm currently working on, which is the Caribbean Speak project. And it is, again, all my projects are storytelling initiatives. And this one really and truly was to highlight climate justice in the Caribbean and 100% a youth perspective, especially those who were present at conferences like COP, for example, or the SIDS conference that took place in Antigua recently. So interviewing all these people and putting their stories and their journeys and their problems and their solutions. Because again, I, as a young person in Trinidad, would be experiencing something completely different from a young person in the Bahamas, for example, or something like that. So I feel like it's so important to have all these different perspectives given a platform to be shared and to be shared in a way where, like I said, it's authentic, it's true to themselves. They could be as unfiltered as they want as possible, but really it's about creating a safe space for young people to share their stories. And you could find some of this content on my Instagram right now, where you're hearing about example of fashion designer in St. Lucia that's been upcycling materials for years now, or you're hearing about a young person from Guadeloupe that has been focusing on the theory of colonization and what that looks like right now, especially with Guadeloupe and Martinique, for example, being overseas territories, but experiencing climate change, but climate change policies not being designed for them because France is the main one developing that. And Guadeloupe and Martinique, outer sight, outer mind, their island realities is very different from European mainland realities, you know. So there's conversations about all those different things about young people who did not start off in the environmental field, who didn't understand anything about it, but slowly and surely started seeing changes. People involved in agriculture, you know, being innovative in the agriculture sector, etc. So there's some really cool stories coming out from this season that I was so honored and so happy to be able to share and to give them a platform to share. Uh, yeah, so this was at COP, and this was and COP as in COP 28, which was held in Dubai. And this was some of the young people that we would have interviewed. The one in the middle with the orange, burnt oranges shirt is the one I was referring to, that was doing the fashion design. And we have next one here, she focuses, this is far right, yes, with the glasses and black, she focuses on loss and damage and what that needs to look like for the Caribbean in the face of climate change and what that fund needs to look like, etc. So yeah, that was everything related to eco vibes. And then underneath, well, formally, as I mentioned, I was the Caribbean regional rep at Sustainable Ocean Alliance. So we had SOA Caribbean, but then we evolved and we changed that to EcoSeas Caribbean, which is now the ocean conservation arm of EcoVibes. And we really wanted it to make something that was 100% designed by the Caribbean for the Caribbean. So this is the Ocean Conservation Arm focusing on people ages 15 to 35 and 100% dedicated to protecting and restoring the marine environment. And we look at everything from marine biodiversity to coral reefs to pollution to coastal ecosystems, communities, sea level rise, you name it, we are very much dedicated and willing to work on it. And this is just an example of some of the work that we would have done. The top left would have been a seagrass monitoring project. The top right, top right, there's only one picture on the right. That was an underwater cleanup that took place. And then we have mangrove restoration work. So there's a lot of different projects, and this is coral reef gardening in Grenada. Yes, this is Corey Garden in Grenada. This is our lovely Grenadian coordinator, which is Kirpa. So like we're very much engaged on being hands-on and making sure that we can understand the problem so that we can contribute to the different solutions that exist. And as young people, we face a tremendous amount of barriers for myself, especially understanding that I did not have to go into government was extremely challenging. That's something that we've been brainwashed to believe, especially in the region. I started off going and getting my master's, doing all this work, and my dad would be like, "Yeah, you could go teach, or you could go and work in government." And those are my two options. And I was like, I don't want to do either of those things. I had a 8 to 4 job in a bank once and I lasted 1 week because I was like, there's no way there's no way. There's just no way. So, and yeah, but for us as youth, really getting access to information, getting access to funding, getting a seat at the table, getting being included in some of these governmental processes, it does not exist. And it is very much a challenging and daunting task. And because of that, one person shared with me a program, an international program, and this was the World Youth Parliament for Water. And this was in 2018. And I went it and I was mind blown. I was just like, first of all, you're telling me that as youth, I could have a voice? Because again, back home, I grew up hearing children must be seen and not heard. And that was the mindset that you take with you throughout your life. And you don't realize that something like that being instilled in you forces you to silence yourself. And or if not silencing yourself, when you're in spaces, that imposter syndrome will take over because you have been taught to be silent. And it's like, no, I could contribute, but should I? Could I? Would I? Like all these different things, come up. And then but from that experience, I was like, whoa, I saw government officials from like Switzerland, etc., like providing platforms and spaces for young people to speak. And I was like, okay, this is something brand new. I'm realizing that there's a lot more that existed outside of my little island bubble. And from that, I decided to just apply to so many more different international programs to get exposure. This picture you're seeing here is a collective of Caribbean youth. This was at the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon in 2022. We have Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, Martinique, Anguilla, Puerto Rico, like full representation here. And I was like, okay, this is something that is crucial and it's so important that I understand international processes and contexts as well as national and regional things as well, so that whatever it is I am developing could be extremely holistic. And one of these things I noticed while being at these conferences was the lack of Caribbean representation. Um, the first time this conference was hosted so this was the youth session for the UN Ocean Conference, which was hosted by Sustainable Ocean Alliance. And the first time I went to one of their youth programs, there was only 2 people from the Caribbean, myself and a guy from Haiti. And, working there, I was like, no, we need to increase representation because there's no way. The Caribbean is experiencing a mass amount of problems. How do we get our people in the room? And from that, we have somewhat of an increase. And then I realized that I need to keep finding a way to be there, to keep amplifying voices, and to keep training other people to also realize that they too could be there and go there and show up and represent well. And since then, this was in Germany. This was at the SBs last year, the subsidiary body meeting, which is the meeting before COP that takes place in June. The UNFCCC, everything related to climate change. So I also went to that youth program, and I've just been making sure that I get the training that I need whilst also contributing to the solutions as well. This again was at the UN Ocean Conference with Peace Boat. This right here is a program that I did, the Youth for the SDGs program, which is with Peace Boat US. Peace Boat is a Japanese NGO that sails internationally for the promotion of the Sustainable Development Goals. The first time I sailed on the Peace Boat was 2019. Again, completely mind blown because it was the first time I went on a cruise ship that was 100% educational based. Like literally everything is about the SDGs, and really got the opportunity to share Caribbean realities with people throughout Europe and understand why something like that was so important and why we need more of these kind of programs, which is one of the reasons why EcoVibes now focuses on the development of all these different programs. And this last year, on the Youth for the SDGs program, we sailed from Panama to Guatemala to Mexico, engaging with indigenous communities, doing sea turtle conservation, doing mangrove conservation work, like really getting into the field. And I kid you not when I say into the field, like we were way deep into the mangroves, like doing research, collecting water quality data, all these different things. And that to me is so important because it's one thing to learn things in a classroom, but it's so important to also go out there and get into the field and also connect with the information that you're getting. More conferences. This was at COP last year, and this was at the UN SIDS conference this year, which was in Antigua. And now I'm asking myself, what's next? Do I take a break? Am I burnt out? And the answer to all those things is yes, I most definitely am. And I've been learning to take a step back and understand that I cannot do it all and I need help. And it's okay when I am not okay because I cannot pour from an empty cup or a cup that is in minus how much ever and everything else, and realizing that it's okay to not know, especially to not know what's next. And I do have one or two projects up my sleeve, more things I want to do. I want to develop a full fellowship program in line with the UN Ocean Decade. I want to have more of these art exhibitions, want to launch children's coloring book. Like there's so much more. I also want to have a documentary, but we haven't reached there yet. But I'm realizing more and more again, like especially within the last 2 years, I was going hard. Like my hustle mindset and culture was unhealthy. And that is because of that toxic productivity that comes with, I don't know, being in the region, or, if I'm taking a week off, then feeling guilty or feeling somewhat lazy or feeling like I'm not fulfilling everything that I need to be doing, and trying to tell myself like it's okay to take a step back and to recognize when it is you need to take a step back, because I've also been getting, like last year and earlier this year, I was getting very sick, and that's because I was pushing myself to unhealthy boundaries. So I'm so glad that I mean, this was by kind of by force that I realized that I needed to stop and slow down. And I know that it doesn't sound like that is what is happening, it but it is. And yeah, and then this is just again where we end with, this is me, the founder of EcoVibes, and literally where creative storytelling meets sustainable solutions. You could scan the QR code to learn more. And I am hoping that I met the brief and I discussed ocean and climate change work within the Caribbean region. And I feel like we could open it up for questions. I did well on time. I was supposed to have 15 minutes and 10 minutes for questions. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Khadija. That was great seminar. I don't know if you hear the clapping from inside the room I'm in. I'm going to open it up for discussion. Again, if you're online and you want to post a question or raise your hand, we'll try to get to you. And I think I'm going to, I'm going to start off with Rashid. Rashid has a question. Go ahead, Rashid.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Khadija. This is exactly why we wanted you to come here and talk. I mean, there were lots of nuggets in your talk in my point of view. I mean, you describe how you came back motivated, want to change the whole of the place, and you get a job here, and the frustration, right? no job, no job, and how crazy. I think many of us here can narrate something similar, how tough it is in the beginning. But you didn't give up. You kept pushing and you started your own thing. So my question is, how many people work with EcoVive and EcoSeas at the moment? I'm trying to say from zero employment, you couldn't get any. How many jobs have you actually created? Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, so right now we have at EcoVibes it's myself, Sheila and Marcella. Okay, EcoVibes have a team of 6 and EcoSeas Caribbean have a team of 4. So in
Okay.
total that's like an overall team of 10. So the problem is that EcoVibes also needs funding to be
Yeah.
able to be able to hire more people, to be able to create more opportunities, etc. So I stay writing grants 24/7. And as soon as one come in or anything like that, we're able to support people. As soon as somebody reaches out to me, because all the staff that I have right now, they reached out and they were like, oh, we want to get involved with this project. We like the work you're doing. And I'm like, okay, come on board, no problem. And once we have the funding, because I do believe that it's also crucial to compensate people for their skills, their time, and their energy. And as much as I know some people are passionate and want to do the work, like passion and everything else does not buy the food that we need to consume to survive. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's great. From 0 to 10 jobs for now. Well done.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'd just like to follow up on that because, you've got, I guess, a level of brand recognition in a certain size where you can apply for grants and people can look you up and go, okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
these guys are legitimate. This is what you've done
Mm.
in the past. But I'm wondering if you could share with us, particularly for the graduate students that might be thinking of starting their own initiatives, like how does that work at the beginning where you may have a great name, you may have great intentions, you may have lots of energy, but as you say, it takes money. And at the beginning, in a way, nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
How did that how did you get it off the ground, I guess?
How did I get it off the ground? Well, if I'm being quite honest, I had some family support. Not much because they didn't quite understand what it is I was trying to do, but I did have some family support and I did have some savings from internships that I had done before. So I was like, okay, I would just go out there and then I tried to do things that didn't cost much money. So for example, I organized one of the first activities I did was a nationwide hike trail cleanup. So everybody was going on all these hikes to all these waterfalls in Trinidad, and it was being so polluted. And I was just like, hey guys, guess what? World Environment Day is coming up. Let's organize a hike trail cleanup nationally, where if you're an NGO, you want to volunteer, you go, you clean up your trail, you give us the data that you of what you collected, we post everything on our blog, and that did not take much capital coming out of me to be able to execute something like that. So I really had to get creative with the projects. And then in getting creative with the projects, I just started posting and sharing everything on LinkedIn, on the blog, on my social media. And then from that, people started recognizing and being like, oh, this girl, clearly a one-woman show for right now, is doing all these things and she's getting it done and is having results. And then people started reaching out to me, oh, how could we partner with you? Or, oh, we'd like to support you. Or, there's this grant coming up. We think you should apply for it. We'll put in a good word because we've been seeing that it's not easy, but you're still finding a way to make it happen. And you're sharing this with all of us and encouraging people to do the same. So why not? And it was literally just that and the idea of I was scared out of my mind a lot of times and I had a lot of breakdowns in between and I was just like, I don't know if I could even do this. What are you doing? Who do you think you are? You like this is not 100% your skill set, but then I was just like, you know what? Do it scared anyways. And I just went out there and I was like, everything would be a lesson. Even if I quote unquote fail, it would not be a failure. I would just understand and know how to do it better the next time around. And that's just the mindset I had and just literally kept pushing. And now this is where we at, where we have some kind of results and bigger grants coming in. So yeah.
We have a question in the room. I'll repeat it. Like, go ahead.
Who is talking, David?
Yeah, we have somebody in the room. I'll just repeat it when it gets. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So the question is relates to the education of the youth regionally. So I mean, you talked about a lot about getting their ideas out to other people, but how have your efforts, or how have you seen changes in the local youth as far as their perceptions of ocean issues and possible solutions? How have you seen
Yes.
that change, particularly through some of your programs?
Yes, I'm so glad I have that question because I get to share some of these stories that we've had. But especially I will use ocean conservation, for example. Now that is not something that is taught in schools, or you would think as island people, we should know more about the ocean that we're surrounded by, etc. So a lot of people don't learn about it. So the more advocacy campaigns and stuff that we've had, and the more we've shown pictures or we've gone out and we've talked about connecting the dots with pollution and all these different things, especially amongst the youth, we saw more and more people signing up to be a part of EcoSeas, wanting to get involved, wanting to create their own projects. And then from that, especially with some of the capacity building programs, we've had a lot of people now doing their undergrad or masters in marine biology because they were just like open to this topic in a big way and so connected and so wanted to do more that they decided, you know what, like EcoSys Caribbean has provided a platform or the foundation, but now we really need the information and the knowledge. And we have members who, sorry, are now in like Australia doing their masters in marine biology and everywhere else. So we have seen that transformation take place with education, and people, more and more people saying, oh, we want to learn how to dive. Could you find a way to fund a diving program for us so that we could really get under the water so that we could see and experience and feel all these things that you're talking about for ourselves? We want to do this, we want to do that. So I believe that we've seen that transformation from education into action.